a lot of people I think live other people's lives, their parents put pressure on them or they
Yeah.
put pressure on themselves and it's arbitrary. It's
Yeah.
like you don't need all that. Did you ever have a time in training since you started training regularly that you like lost the mojo? Where you're like, man, I am not excited to go to the gym. You just start questioning why you do it.
No. I've never had that.
That's interesting, eh? Because I've had that many times.
Like I couldn't fathom, and I know you don't miss sessions either.
No, I don't.
But you like want to. I have never wanted to ever.
I've gone to the gym. This sounds kind of crazy, probably. But I've gone to the gym because I knew that if I didn't go, I would just be 10 times worse. And I was already in a place that was so hellish that I was like, I just have to go and do something.
Yeah.
It's not like I go and put a ton of pressure on myself. But I guess enough pressure that I go when I very well could justify not going. And that's okay. Like I've been at the gym crying, being like, I don't feel good at all. But I'm like, I know if I don't go.
But did that really have to do with the gym? It had to do already with how you're feeling.
Oh, it had nothing to do with the gym.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you still went.
Yeah.
I've never had.
But it's
people when they say, I don't know who they are, but the people, they go, oh, the gym, just felt like such a chore. Such a chore.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've never had that ever.
Right.
I love the gym. I love the gym. I actually was talking to a client today.
Yeah.
And this goes along with similar lines where it's like, and we were talking about it recently too, which was funny because she brought it up. When, you've been married to a person for a long time and they're like, oh, you still like your wife, eh? Or whatever. She said that, and they are seen on TV for, part of the job they do.
Okay.
Their racing job they do.
Okay.
And they were holding hands and they were walking out of the track holding hands. She said she had so many texts on like, oh, that's so sweet. You guys still love each other and da da da. Like,
damn, dude.
So much. She's like, yeah, we do everything together. Like, I love my husband and he loves me.
And they're like shocked.
And how he's gotten comments too, like, bro, I can't imagine hanging out with my wife anymore.
Damn, that's
and it's just and all she said was like, misery loves company.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's 100%. And the same thing with people complaining about planning their wedding. It's like you're already setting up your relationship to be about complaining.
Dude, I notice that more than ever now. I guess we're at that age where it's like just people. It's been several years now of people like getting married.
Yeah.
And just hearing so many people plan their wedding. Not everybody. But a lot of people I hear talk about their wedding and they're like, man, it was so stressful. And I'm like, I get it. It's probably tough to kind of not be stressed out for something like that. But you're like, that's kind of there's a bit of like a bittersweet or mostly bitter situation if you're like planning one of the most important, if not the most important day of your life so far. And you have this negative attachment of
exactly
stress.
It's because you're pressured by your parents or whatever to put on a big party for all your guests, but when really it's supposed to be a day about you.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be better is that you just tell a wedding planner, a third party wedding planner, what you want, and they just plan it.
What was your experience with that?
Oh, I had a great time. I had no
stress.
No, because I was on prep.
So
my mom basically planned the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So she was your third party.
She was a third party, but I did the guest list because that's where she would have gone crazy.
You didn't find it stressful though?
No.
Like you wouldn't look back and be like, oh my goodness, I'm just glad it's done.
No, it was a great party.
Okay. Yeah. So many people I talked to, it's like they loved their day. It was super special. but they're like,
The leading
yeah,
up
it was
to
just,
it.
they have to say how stressful it was. And you're like, man,
Yeah.
that sounds like a bad attachment to a day that's supposed to be pretty awesome.
Exactly. Because they'll always think that, oh, planning it was so stressful. And it's like, okay, fine.
It's got to be a better way.
You know what I mean? But it's just like everyone wants then to relate to other people where they're like, yeah, man, it was so and then they relate, and then it's like that gives them the dopamine. Almost.
It's like the thing you say,
right?
It's like that's what everyone else says. So then I say it.
Because then if I said like, oh no, mine was great, no problem, then they'd be like, oh yeah, I guess it wasn't that bad,
dude. It's like when
it's just like you remember false things.
It's literally this, and they don't even necessarily believe it. I don't know, or maybe they do, but it's
they're
the
just
same.
Supposed to say it.
It's the same vibe as like people when you. I was talking to someone recently about this, where you ask someone like, "Hey, how you doing?" And like, I don't know, whether I'm in a good mood or not, I'm gonna at least fake it for you. So it's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they go, "Just living the dream, dude." And you're like, it's like you're saying that sarcastically, which is the joke, which means you're not living the dream.
Yeah.
Which means now I'm just depressed.
Yeah.
Because you're depressed, joking about how much you're not living the dream. Dude, that sucks. And like, I also wish I never asked you how you're doing now.
Yeah. Because you're like, you were expecting a good bro, you? Like
at the very least. Yeah. This is why, okay, so that's super common, right?
Yeah.
People being like, hey, how you doing? And then them actually telling you, but it's all negative, you know? And you're just like, damn, this is a lot of, and I get it, people going through stuff or whatever, right? But there's a time and a place. And it's just weird when people have that like go-to cliche that's just like, living the dream, bro, huh? Or the classic. This is a classic. Just another day. And you're like, oh, that's so miserable, man.
The thing is that I get people need to have a job to make money to pay for things. You can change your job. Like if you are absolutely in a job or a career that you hate, you totally can get a new skill set and change your job.
And I will say as a caveat, there's some people in situations where they're like, you know what, I hate my job, but the context that I'm in, I'm willing to just hate my job for whether I'm sacrificing this so that whatever it gives you for your family or whatever.
You have to add a lot of context. Like, yes, if they have a young family and they just need it and they're getting by and whatever.
But to your point, there's a lot of people that are
There's people that are, 23 years old and they're getting depressed at their job.
Yeah, just change it.
You don't need to do that.
Just quit. Do something else.
That's what I did. I hated my job. I quit.
Yep.
At that age, when you're single and you know what I mean? This is the time to figure out what you actually want to do.
But you really can quit anytime. Like I think sunk cost is a real thing for people.
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't have to be 23. You could be 33, 43, 53. And you're like this idea of like paying into a pension or paying into like, or just whatever. They're just like, well, I've worked up so much in this company, I don't want to throw it away for nothing. And like you can kind of create this situation
like
that
justification to stay.
Yeah, exactly. To stay. And it's like very sedating. And like it'll keep you comfortable and stuck.
I get that. I get
it too. Yeah.
I think the damage though of like going through that stress every day, but then like you said, kind of like numbing yourself out with that thought, with your thoughts or whatever. You still wake up with anxiety. Like you have to talk yourself. Like I remember the job that I didn't like. I'd wake up every day and I'd be like, I need to call in sick.
Right.
Like
that's a bad space to be in.
I can't even fathom going. And then I would just talk myself down and go into work.
And then you're counting down the hours till you're done each shift.
And it's so slow.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Right. And like the trip I just went on, right?
Yeah.
Love my family to death.
Yeah.
All of them the whole time. That's all they talked about is not wanting to go back because they didn't want to go back to work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it was Sunday night, the first Sunday we were there, and they were all like, haha, like everyone's got to work tomorrow. We're getting PTO. I was like, whoa.
Right.
I was like, I can't relate.
No, I love what I do. I love my work. Yeah, Sunday night's awesome.
I love what I do.
I'm going to work tomorrow. This is great.
It's like I got to talk to my clients the whole time. Everyone stayed on track. There was no lag in their progress. Like it was fantastic.
I think people truly think that they can't do anything else. Like there's just a limit around like, well, I can't do. It's like people will train you.
Or it's overwhelming thought of like, oh, then I'm going to have to go back to school. It's going to cost this much, or I'm going to have to learn this skill and it's going to take this much time. And
There's lots of other.
It's too overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. There's lots. It's just a fear. It's a
Yeah.
fear-based mind. It's like there's so many situations where you don't have to go back to school. There's so many things that employers will train you in, and you could just start at square one. Really, you can.
Here's something. So I have a client that loves her job, loves it, has a huge problem with someone she works with,
Okay.
which causes then that same stress because they're like,
Right.
I get to go into a job I love, but I have to see this person, and it causes stress every day.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
She literally called me when the person had quit.
Oh yeah, she's fired
She's
up.
like, "This is the best thing ever."
Yeah.
Right? So it's like
Yeah, that is the same
that's
vibe.
also something that you have to be like, you could love your job, and then someone's there that just and someone maybe in a management position or something.
Yeah.
That's actually could affect you.
Yeah.
Because if it's just a coworker, like just ignore them or whatever.
Because even I've thought about that, where it's like, if you run down the logical end of like just realistically what would happen if I was like, oh, if I just quit my job and, you know, my primary skill set is in coaching people on their fitness. And it's like, if I actually just quit and went into a completely different industry, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of scary.
Mhm.
But I'm like, why is that a death sentence? In your heads, we could easily make that feel like a death sentence, but it's totally just an opportunity to like learn something new.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean I'm necessarily great at it. And I definitely wouldn't be at the start. But like, why couldn't I make that work? Like, there's no reason why I can't.
It's scary when you're getting older, right? Like, remember when I went back to school for a semester?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what, 28, 29, and they were all 19 to 21.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different set of priorities, which is why, like, I agree when they're like, when you go to university or college, you're like getting a degree in partying.
Right.
Because you really don't have the same mindset if you were to go back and learn a new skill when you're older. Because you're like, oh no, I'm learning this to provide or like to make money for my family or whatever, right? It's like all they're there for is to meet friends and party.
Yeah, I really think like unless you're doing a highly specialized job that there's no way around it, it'll require academic training, then like I think you probably should just go work. Just get real life experience and just try stuff and see what you learn and what you pick up and what you find fulfillment in. And then from that down the road, you can be like, turns out I either like that or I don't. And then from there you can be like, now I can really have more like real life context as to like what I should spend thousands of dollars on academically.
Yes. Cause like, so I had my 4-year, I think it took me 4.5 years because of my co-op science degree. And I went into my first job as a microbiologist. And it's not like I had to know anything. Like they trained me how to do the job. I didn't need any year. I could have gone out of high school to do that job if they just trained me. But I had to have that background. But nothing I learned with that background related to the job, other than I knew what a Petri plate was.
Yeah.
Right? Like even the pipettes we were using were different.
Gotcha.
And the fume hood was different.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they wanted the data collected was different.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's like, oh, since you had the science background, you can like pick it up faster. But then they let people with like an English degree go to med school.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just going to teach you in med school. You don't need the science degree to go to med school.
Sure.
So it's like very much so like why then do I need that distinction to do?
There's a lot of ego attached to that stuff, I think. If you need it, then you need it. Go do it. But some of it I think is a lot of people I think live other people's lives. Their parents put pressure on them or they put pressure on themselves and it's arbitrary. It's like you don't need all that, man.
Actually, I was talking with Josie about this today.
Mm-hmm.
How all the, all our generation of parents, and not to say all parents, because I don't believe your parents, and really not my parents, but like boomer parents would be like, you have to go to university, you have to go to college,
right.
You have to get this.
Yeah.
But then they come to you this day and age and they're like, well, I learned this on Instagram Reels and I learned this on TikTok. Right. And it's the parents coming to you like saying like, oh, I saw this person on TikTok tell me this. And then like, this is what I learned. Yeah. And it's like, no, but you told me to go to university to learn that.
Right.
So now they're coming back and it's such a disconnect, right? Because they just got put so much pressure by their parents because their parents like traveled to a different country and did so much that they're like, oh, I gotta put some type of pressure on my kid to like
Yeah.
get an education because my parents didn't have the opportunity or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I think like decades ago, that would have been like a more like obvious pipeline
Yeah.
to develop and start a career. But like now there's so many with like the way the internet works now and just the different landscape of commerce, it's like I think there's so many options for people to make a living that there's so many non-traditional paths
I know.
that just choosing the one that's always been there is like probably so far down the list of options for most people realistically that I think people just need to be aware of that.
People get FOMO though.
What do you mean?
So all my clients that are in university right now, they're always messaging me like how crazy their schedule is and how stressed they are and whatever. And these people have the ability to like not go to university. Because I think they're very talented in other aspects of life. Like my one client, like I think he could be a very successful chef
Mhm.
because he does that for like his part-time job to pay for school. But I think there's a level of FOMO. Like, no, I need to get a degree though.
Is that FOMO or just pressure?
Like, I want to go to university though. I want the experience.
Oh,
I think it's
okay.
a FOMO thing.
Yeah,
But then
okay.
they're also they're
trying to
stressed off
understand
their
that.
rockers because like, yeah, mental health is a bigger deal these days, and stress is because you're stressed from your phone, you're stressed from your relationship, you're stressed from your parents, you're stressed from school, you're stressed from making money. Now you have to start paying bills, and it's like you could like eliminate that degree and that schooling and just get like a really good skill and start working, and it would just take off like
Yeah. Well, and
a ton
ultimately
of
that's what it
stress
comes down to. It's like when you think about what actually makes you money, which is the whole goal here. Um
of going to university. Yeah.
married with in an ideal situation, married with something that fulfills you.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, it's like you need to at first you need to actually be making money. It's
Yeah.
like you go to school in a perfect world, you're supposed to be acquiring information and acquiring skills. And then maybe there's another layer there where you're acquiring connections. So you're building your network. But you can also do that outside of school, especially with the internet now. Like you can learn skills for free everywhere.
Yeah.
Or you can pay people to do it that doesn't cost you what school does, and you can streamline it way faster. So free or paid, but still better option, right? And then information and skills, you can do that both through that way. And then skills, not whether it's just information and learning kind of theory, you can also just learn it practically
Yeah.
in real life
And-
if you want to actually, if you can get someone to hire you. Now, a lot of people be like, well, you need school to get hired. It's like in certain situations or in
Not if
certain
you have
fields,
experience.
but there's,
Yeah.
and I mean, I understand the paradox of the catch-22 people talk about where it's like, well, I need experience to get hired and I can't get experience if I don't have a degree, right? That whole thing. And it's like, I need money, but then I need to pay for
But
school to
I
get the
think
degree.
that's where the networking would come in. Someone would hire you if you networked well enough.
Well, I think it's this
without a
idea too
degree.
of like looking just to like these traditional institutions to give you that gate key
Mhm.
when it's like, if you took a little bit more initiative and responsibility of just like, the world's very different. You really can just learn you can learn this information and acquire these skill sets probably a lot more on your own, not necessarily entirely, but you can learn a lot on your own
Mhm.
enough to get other people to pay you money. I think a lot of people just don't believe that, or they're just ignorant to it. They just don't know that like, they think that like, if I want to make this like X amount of money, I'm going to have to go to school to do that. It's
Yeah.
like, they don't know that they can make that amount of money and probably more just from learning information and acquiring skills by themselves for the most part.
See, and another issue is that they're throwing you into college or university, ideally at like 17, 18. You don't know what you want to do. I'm sorry. Like maybe some.
Some people do, for
Some
sure.
people do.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wanted to be a trainer until 2017. I went into university at 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 6 years that I got this degree, did some jobs I hated, and then figured out like, oh, I actually love fitness.
Right.
And I did love fitness in university.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a pressure of like, I can't be just a personal trainer. Like that's
really?
that's a low job.
Right.
Oh, 100%. I
Yeah.
thought that.
Yeah.
I got my fancy science degree. I'm not going to be a personal trainer.
Yeah, what a loser.
That's what I thought.
That's so funny.
I would see them in the university gym and I'd be like, I didn't look up to a personal trainer.
Right.
And I think it's because the profession kind of gets like crapped on because it's like, oh, someone's just hiring you to like put them through a workout and like whatever. Anyone can do that, bro.
Well, and part of it's not
like-
just that. I think part of it is the fact that it is like such low barrier
Oh, yeah.
that like
Yeah.
anyone can do it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like we have a very similar personal trainers are on par, like I think culturally with financial advisors
Mhm.
and real estate agents. It's I think to actually start doing that at a entry level, the barrier to entry is relatively low for three of those jobs.
Yeah.
Depending on I guess which route you go. But like if you wanted to do either one of those three jobs, you can do it relatively easy compared to a lot of other options.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why it gets that idea. Because
Okay,
it's
that's
like
fair. That's fair.
And what the problem with that when it is, which I understand, like the economics of that is like people, if there's low barrier to entry, you're going to attract a lot of lazy people and people that do the bare minimum to try and make money in that industry.
That's where though I believe those people after X amount of years they just weed themselves out.
They do, but the thing about that is then the new ones come. So
Fair.
they're always there,
Fair.
right? So if you
Fair.
have 100% of the pool, 85, 90% of the pie is always going to be churning in and out of like new and old, but they're all going to be the same type.
You're
They're
right.
all going to be low level,
You're right.
like low IQ, low skill set,
I guess then you just it gets to a level where they all just drop off by then, but like that level keeps getting refilled.
That's what I mean. It never actually goes
Yeah,
down because
okay.
like it just keeps coming in,
That's
right?
fair.
Because of the low entry.
I guess because like so in my program at university,
Mhm.
we started with it was still a relatively new program. I remember, and they tell you like within your orientation week, they're like, majority of you are going to change your major like 4 or 5 times, and that's okay, right? And they're just telling. And I was like, I remembered. First of all, I don't like starting something and not finishing it, so I had to stay in that major. Second thing, I was like, I had no idea how to change it. You know what I mean? It's like I literally was like too scared to go to my academic advisor or whatever and be
Yeah.
like, how do I change my major? Like I just didn't want to do it because then I would have to have maybe taken other classes
Sure.
and taken more time and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to do that.
That's funny.
So then, and it was funny because my academic advisor was actually one of my elementary school friends' mom.
Okay.
So she knew me from like when I was this big, right?
Mhm.
So it would have been so easy to talk to her
Mhm.
because I knew her. And I still was too scared. I was like, no, I'm not going to change this. And in the end, I ended up actually kind of liking it.
Right.
So I was like, so we started with maybe, this is like TLDR. We started with like maybe 80 people and only 11 of us graduated in that program
Oh yeah.
because it was getting hard. It was getting,
So high churn on that. Like there's a lot. Like
Ye-
that's common for that program.
well, I don't, it was so new. It was only like year 3 or 4 of offering it.
Oh.
They used to offer it as 2 separate.
Okay.
So it was biological and pharmaceutical chemistry.
Mhm.
They offered biological science and pharmaceutical chemistry. And then they just
Amalgamated the two.
put 'em
Did that
together.
make it way harder then? Is that why?
No, because I think it gave it a more outlook on how the pharmaceuticals interacted with the body. Because before it was just like, what's the chemistry of these compounds versus how do compounds move through the body?
Gotcha.
And then it kind of just, they kind of were meant to be together anyways, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
But we had some cool courses. Like some I do remember and I'm like, I actually like enjoyed that. Like I liked all the hands-on lab stuff. So like any titration, like the minute it goes like just a bit pink, you're like, that's it. And you have to like do all the calculations and stuff.
Looking like
You're there and you're just opening it just so one little minuscule drop goes in, and then the color change. You're like, that's it.
I picture you looking like
screaming in the lab. We were such nerds.
I picture you looking like what's that guy's name from Breaking Bad?
Walter White.
Bryan Cranston. Yeah, whatever the character. Yeah, Walter White, the character's name.
We're just there. Anyways, I love titrations.
Nice.
But that's such a nerd thing to say. But I think we can end on that.
Yeah, let's wrap it. Thanks everybody for listening to the show. Please comment below ideas, topics, things you want to hear us speak about. We have lots of plans.
And comment about your experience with like university, if you would go back.
Yeah, or if you disagree,
just challenge us a bit.
Because I'm gonna argue in the comments. I will if you disagree.
You will. He's not
bait
lying.
me, and I will dive on and get into internet comment
fishing.
arguments.
PH.
That's how I like to spend my time.
Right? Isn't that a computer word? Fishing.
PH fishing.
PHIS.
Bad fishing. Indoor fishing. Anyways, thanks a lot for listening to the show. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this, and you can catch us at Stay Peaked anywhere on social media. You can catch myself at Tim_MSHC on all social media platforms. You can catch Sam at Slays Fit on all social media platforms. Thanks again for listening to the show. We'll catch you later. Peace.